council direct staff to reflect the financial request at the September 24th, 24 regular council meeting. So if I could have a move and a seconder so we can watch the presentation. Councillor Gadry and Councillor McCutcheon. Give the floor to Abigail.
Great, thank you. Good evening, Mayor Diamond and Council. Firstly, I would like to congratulate each of you on your recent election to Council. I am the Physician Recruitment Specialist for the Boreal Pulse Healthcare Attraction Team. I have given several presentations over the course of my professional career. However, I feel compelled to tell you that this one feels a little bit different for me. This presentation is closer to my heart. My name is Abigail Brennan. However, some of you may recognize me under my maiden name, Abigail Tremblay. I'm the eldest daughter of Mark and Jennifer Tremblay, proud retired business owners of A&G Fresh Mart here in Matheson for over 20 years. I grew up in Matheson for 15 years, and much of my family, including grandparents, aunts, uncles, and cousins, still live here. While I now reside in Timmins with a family of my own, no one ever loses their childhood hometown and the passion to help see it thrive, the same reason that many of you are sitting here today. This evening, I'm going to share with you how the Boreal Pulse Healthcare Attraction Team can help the Township of Black River Matheson plan for and proactively work towards a more stable and sustainable healthcare future for its community and residents. Again, many of these residents are family and friends, and I would love nothing more than to be part of a sustainable healthcare future for them, one with easy access to family doctors and primary care and a stable emergency department. Please note that I am also joined this evening with Chair of the Boreal Pulse, Ben LaFive. Ben is also a municipal councillor for the town of Iroquois Falls and is a board member for Mixed Group of Health Services. I want to clarify, sorry, I'm going to take a short pause. Do you see my actual presentation that's supposed to be posted?
We see you.
Okay, so you have no, okay. I'm going to, I have access to share my screen, sorry, with whoever is clerking the meeting. Do I have granted access in order to do that?
Yeah, we will get that for you.
Thank you. Sorry about that, everyone.
Okay, you should be good now. You can share it.
Okay. Okay, I'm just going to look for the share option. Okay, great. Do you see the presentation at this point?
Yeah.
Excellent. So the major topics of my presentation today will include covering the evolution of the committee/organization, the strategic plan, mission, and vision of the Boreal Pulse, our recruitment model and successes, a breakdown of Black River Matheson's current medical landscape, and how your commitment and participation to the Boreal Pulse will help your community guarantee its continued effort in achieving sustainable healthcare for its residents. In 2019, a large community-initiated meeting took place between the municipal representatives of the communities of Matheson, Iroquois Falls, and Cochrane, along with several key hospital representatives, business owners, and other key stakeholders with the purpose of discussing the grim healthcare reality that the region was facing, a significant physician shortage with the understanding that the future only held more retirements and no real succession plan. The result of the meeting was to create a committee comprised of individuals from all three communities with the sole purpose of recruiting physicians to the region and committing to building a stable physician workforce for Matheson, Iroquois Falls, and Cochrane. Fast forward to 2021, and the initiative took off under the name Worker Bees Physician Recruitment and Retention Committee. Black River Matheson were the ones to pioneer this initiative, taking on the committee as a formal committee of council, and I was hired in June of 2021 as the physician recruiter. After just 6 months in the role, we saw our first success, having successfully recruited a primary care and ER physician to the community of Iroquois Falls. I feel it is very important to highlight that the average time to recruit one physician to a rural and remote community in Ontario is one physician every 2 years. This regional success was highlighted on many scales, with Ontario Health recognizing this regional recruitment approach that the worker bees had pioneered as being the way of the future. Sadly, after almost a year in the role, other opportunities brought me elsewhere, and the committee eventually went lame duck with the changeover in municipal council. However, in 2023, with new municipal councils in office in each of the communities, the committee restarted operations as a community-led initiative, not a committee of council, under the name Frontier Spirit, in an effort to avoid the political turmoil that had previously interfered with positive advancements as a committee of council. The committee began operating with the intention of incorporating as a not-for-profit organization, with the intention to access increased funding avenues. First step was to rehire a recruitment specialist who could also manage the secretary obligations of the not-for-profit corporation. Circumstances and timing aligned, and I re-entered this role at the beginning of 2024. Since my hiring 7 months ago, I am pleased to share that we have successfully scheduled 6 community assessment visits with physicians who are interested in our region for practice, the next being in only 2 weeks' time. We have received the final documents for incorporation, and we are prepared to continue moving forward, chasing a stable physician workforce for our region under the name Boreal Pulse Healthcare Attraction Team. The physician shortage is not exclusive to our region. It is a provincial and national problem, one that has left each community to solve on their own. Across the country, cities and communities are developing their own models to help relieve the crisis. Regionally, you will also find recruiters and similar initiatives in New Liskeard, North Bay, Englehart, Kirkland Lake, Timmins, Hearst, Kapuskasing, the North Shore, Sault Ste. Marie, Sioux Lookout, and Sudbury, just to name a few. Physician recruitment initiatives are in need with any hope of surviving the physician shortage crisis. The Boreal Pulse's mandate, the goal that I continuously work towards on a daily basis, is to strategically position our communities to be regionally, provincially, and nationally competitive through a stronger together model. A model with continued focus on succession planning, economic growth and associated healthcare needs, and ongoing attention to the evolving recruitment landscape. So how have we been successful? How have we significantly amplified the physician interest in our region? It is our ongoing dedication to continuously evaluating the ever-changing recruitment landscape. Currently, in-person recruitment and high visibility is the need post-pandemic. This entails attending recruitment events and conferences with direct potential to discuss our regional opportunities and offers with students, resident physicians, and practicing physicians. Our strategic plan also breaks down the long-term solution to the crisis. How can we prevent a future physician shortage after solving the current needs? Our succession plan depicts a grow your own model where we nurture students with a passion for medicine from our own area into serving this region post-training. Our model also highlights the ongoing need for retention initiatives to maintain current physicians and retain those that we recruit in the future. The Stronger Together model is a model of success, and it is being adopted on national and provincial scales. Representing the communities of Matheson, Iroquois Falls, and Cochrane, I can proudly say that I'm a member of the Canadian Society of Physician Recruiters, which is a national organization, and I'm also the vice chair of the Northeastern Division of the Ontario Physician Recruitment Alliance and a board member of the Ontario Physician Recruitment Alliance. The Stronger Together model offers the opportunity for shared investment. The need for high visibility in the current recruitment landscape is costly. Sharing these expenses amongst regional partners is strategic with the opportunity for very high return. I'm sure that each of you sitting here today are well aware of not only the physician crisis, but the hospital and emergency department closures that have come provincially as a result of it. Bingham Memorial Hospital here in Matheson employed 2 part-time contract physicians, each taking approximately 50% of the emergency department shifts. Contract expiry and non-renewal has left you with 1 part-time contract physician. In short, this means that the other 50% of the time, your emergency department remaining open relies on other provincial physicians answering our cries for emergency assistance through the locum program portal. Further, we anticipate that your remaining part-time physician will retire in the not so distant future. Without a succession plan or any ongoing initiatives working towards building a more stable future, you can anticipate the grim reality for your local hospital's future will include no local family doctors or primary care services for your residents, emergency department closures, and even the possibility of permanent hospital closure. Hospitals do not and cannot operate without physicians. What are the benefits of a collaborative approach, and why should you continue investing in the Boreal Pulse Healthcare Attraction team? Firstly, the model already exists. We have built our strategic plan to be one of success, evidenced through a recruitment rate over 50% higher than the provincial average for rural and remote communities. 2, there's negligible administrative involvement for your municipality. I operate my own sole proprietorship in which the organization contracts my services. I perform all recruitment-related duties and perform all administrative tasks for the corporation. 3, the partnership model means that costs for necessary items such as participation at recruitment events, marketing materials, and expenses for physician site visits are all shared amongst the partners. 4, the nonprofit model that the Boreal Pulse has pursued means increased access to philanthropic dollars, corporate donations, and overall increased opportunity for funding avenues to support recruitment activities and overall operations. Last but not least, number 5 is the proof of your ongoing investment in your community's healthcare future and evidence to your continued commitment to health resources for your residents. This ongoing investment into your community's healthcare future can be accomplished through renewing your participation and financial contribution to the Boreal Pulse Healthcare Attraction team. To secure Black River Madison's ex officio board seat, as well as one regular board seat on the board of directors of the not-for-profit corporation, the Boreal Pulse is seeking $25,000. Please note that these contributions were made by Iroquois Falls and Cochrane several months ago. The Boreal Pulse requires your decision as we look to finalize the membership of the organization with final documents in hand ready for signature. You invest, and as a team, we make strides towards a better healthcare future for all of us. Thank you, and we'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Abigail.
Thank
I
you.
will, obviously we're brand new and we're just getting into this.
Yeah.
I'll open the floor for discussion or comments or questions from anybody. I had a question. Okay, Councilor Carroll.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a question just to see, in terms of like Cochrane or Falls and Matheson, I'm just curious to see what kind of shape we're in compared to them. To see, you know, would we get a physician first, or would other municipalities be coming first?
Okay, so in terms of investment and participation into the corporation, essentially once all of the partners are aligned through this initiative, what we aim to do is when we do the community assessment visits, as briefly discussed in my presentation, the goal is that we market every community that we are partnered with to these physicians. So I highlighted that we have 6 visits scheduled for the near future in the coming months. So the goal is that with every community that is invested in our initiative, that these physicians have the opportunity to tour each of these communities. After having the opportunity to tour each of the communities, it would then be up to the physician's discretion in order to determine which community that they would ideally like to practice in. As I'm sure you're very well aware, each community has something a little bit different to offer. When we build our packages and marketing material, we do make sure to highlight each of those key interests and key points for each of the community, but that's the main goal, just to make sure that each of these communities just is having equal exposure to the interested physicians in our region. Hopefully that answered the question.
Councilor Council.
Thank you. So we can participate and not be guaranteed a position ever?
Technically that is correct. There has been a very large understanding between the partners previously. As I alluded to, this would be a continuous participation. So Black River Madison has participated in the past, and you have been very much part of the physician tours that we have had. in order to kind of secure a position in this landscape, not only do you need to be involved in the recruitment initiatives, but I do believe that another report was put forward, hopefully for your review this evening, that alludes to the need for attraction packages for physicians as well. So this is something that Iroquois Falls and Cochrane have developed in the recent past in order to incentivize and attract physicians to their community. So I have made it very well known to staff that this is something that the new council should hopefully consider in the future in order to remain attractive in the current landscape that we're in. Hopefully that answered your question.
Yep, Councillor Charbonneau?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one more question. You mentioned you have like 6 site visits you guys have to do. Is there a deadline for this commitment before you guys do those visits?
So that would be more highlighted in the report that was hopefully presented from the CAO. As alluded to in my presentation, our closest upcoming site visit is scheduled for the week of September 23rd to the week of September 27th. In the report submitted, hopefully for your review this evening, you will see that there is a request for shared expenses for this site visit. So that would have an associated timeline. Cochrane and Iroquois Falls have already dedicated their contribution to ensuring that this physician's expenses are covered. And again, the logistics of that would be covered in the report. For that perspective, there would be a timeline. Again, in terms of the corporation proceeding as a not-for-profit, the membership is already outlined in our current documents that we have sitting in my inbox. So we are hoping to proceed with that as soon as possible. So again, in terms of financial contribution, the municipalities, we're seeking $25,000. However, the goal as a not-for-profit corporation is to seek out other funding avenues. So once we are incorporated as a not-for-profit, we will be seeking philanthropic dollars, large corporate donations from our biggest industries in the area, such as mining. As I'm sure you can appreciate, in order to attract miners to these large organizations that are driving our economy, healthcare is a need in order to attract those families to our region. So we'll be seeking that as soon as the not-for-profit is established. So that we are hoping to do very much as soon as possible.
Councillor Charbonneau?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I feel at this time we should defer until we have a chance to at least look at our budget and look at where we stand, because I mean, we haven't had a chance to look at anything. We don't know where we stand right now.
Yeah, we're not having a budget presentation tonight, are we? Oh, okay, well, we're having a budget presentation after, so
That's how I feel.
any other question, comments? Councillor Helm?
Is report. The report that she's speaking of.
Yeah.
I'm just reading through it. One part of it says that the resident has shown significant interest in BRM. What does that mean?
Yeah, so as alluded to previously, when physicians show interest in our region, we have existing packages that have marketing material for each of the communities. So we're able to clearly lay out what each community has to offer in terms of practice opportunities, amenities, the community landscape in general. So all of that information was presented to him several months ago, and he had the opportunity to review that. After doing so, reviewing the practice models and what each community did have to offer, he had expressed significant interest in Matheson specifically in comparison to the remaining 2 communities. So that would be what's alluded to in that report. With that being said, you will note that further into that report, it does allude to, and as I previously stated, that Iroquois Falls and Cochrane have established recruitment incentive packages in order for them to attract physicians. So without having something like this established prior to his visit, the community of Matheson would run the risk of potentially losing his interest to a neighboring community as a result of not essentially being competitive in the current landscape.
Councillor Allen?
When he was presented with this information, about the communities.
Go
Oh.
All good?
Yeah.
Councillor McCutcheon?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You keep referencing incentive packages.
Yes.
What does an incentive package consist? Like, well, can you give an example what Iroquois Falls did for an incentive package?
Sure. So as you can imagine, those are discussed in closed session, and they are not public record or public documents. So in terms of the actual specifics, I cannot disclose that information. However, you will note in the report that neighboring communities, whether it be regionally, provincially, or nationally, do share some of the same incentive types, whether that be interest-free loans, signing bonuses, housing allowances, overhead subsidies, travel expense coverage, things of that nature. So these are not only things that Iroquois Falls and Cochrane have initiated and developed in the recent past, but these are items that Timmins, Hearst, Kapuskasing, some of those other communities that I'd mentioned during my presentation all have as well. So when we are speaking about being, in a strategically competitive with all of these communities, it has now become a need in order to remain competitive. And it's unfortunate, but it's just the kind of grim reality that we are kind of currently facing. So especially, Northern Ontario communities, and I'm speaking again as someone who was born and raised in Black River Madison for much of my life. These are not, the physician shortage is not exclusive to communities such as ours. This is a provincial and national problem. And as I alluded to, it's been left to communities in order to solve this crisis on their own, which is unfortunate to say the least. But not only is it rural and remote communities that are taking these types of initiatives, it's larger ones as well. So when, again, I'm in discussions with physicians who are interested in our region, we also find that larger cities such as Brockville, Belleville, Kingston, they all come to the table as well with large offers and packages readily available to physicians in order to incentivize them to their region. So when it comes time to rural and remote communities such as ours, we are, as you can imagine, aiming to recruit a specific type of physician, ones with, an interest in the outdoors and nature and all the good things that we know and love about Northern Ontario. But that does make it increasingly difficult for us. So when we are competing with those larger cities with increased amenities and things like that, the need to be increasingly competitive is astronomical.
Councillor Allen?
This potential physician, when he was presented with the packages for each town and he showed significant interest in Black River Matheson, was he also presented with the incentive packages from Iroquois Falls and Cochrane? Is
No.
that something that was doing at that time?
No, that's never done until, well, I can't say never, but we aim for that to be, especially when all three communities are on the table as potential communities of interest. We leave package presentation for in-person meetings so that financial incentive don't become a factor in prior to seeing what the community has to offer in person.
Good. Councillor Sharma, did you want to put that as an amendment to our resolution that we defer until we watch our budget in a little while? And
Yes,
we also know there's a deadline because we have to, the resolution is that we direct staff to reflect the financial request at the September 24th meeting. So we could just receive the report and the presentation by Abigail, and at the next meeting, we could, now, once we've seen our budget, we could come up with a financial figure. If that's agreeable with everybody.
Yeah.
That sounds like something.
Yes.
Okay, does anyone have any more questions for Abigail, or I think Ben's there as well, isn't he?
Ben is also here. I know I've taken most of the microphone time, but he is here. He does appear to be off camera, but in the event that there was anything specific for Ben as the chair of the corporation, by all means, please feel free to direct any of your questions to him specifically.
Okay. In the meantime, if anyone has questions, can we get a hold of you if they were to email you or get a hold of you?
Absolutely, please do. And I did mean to say that at the during my last slide, I did have my contact information on there, but I would be happy to relay that to the clerk or anyone who you deem most appropriate in order to distribute to council. By all means, please reach out by phone or email with any of your inquiries. I'd be happy to answer those questions or attend a meeting or special meeting in the future so that we can have a more in-depth conversation. I know that it's a lot of information, and with council being brand new, I can respect and understand that this is probably also slightly confusing.
Okay. All right, so if you're okay with that deferral, then Councilor Trevor will, you want to put a motion to defer it, and then we will discuss it next meeting.
Yeah. I'll put a motion to defer.
What I want. Can I get a mover in a second, please? Councilor Cancel, Councilor Bouchard. All in favor? Good. Thank you very much, Abigail.
Thank you. I do see just from an administration, I do see Ben has his hand up and I haven't given him the opportunity to say anything. So if we can, I will just let Ben at least introduce himself. But thank you very much for your time. I really sincerely do appreciate it, Mayor Diamond and Council, and I wish you guys all the best.
Thank you.
Do you mind if I speak for a moment, Mr. Mayor? Would that be okay? Just briefly. I want to thank you for the opportunity to present. I think Abigail's laid out all of the issues quite nicely. We are definitely in critical mode, not just in Matheson. We realize that it's right across the mixed group of health services. So this is an initiative that I think would bode well for everybody. We're not expecting you to make an answer tonight, although I just want to impress the fact that if this individual is coming, I think Abigail might have clarified it just a little bit more. What we're talking about is paying for his flight into Ontario from, if I'm not mistaken, is it Edmonton or Calgary, Abigail? Where this individual is coming from? Anyway, so
Edmonton.
It's Edmonton. So once he gets into Ontario, the expenses are covered. So basically, we're looking at 1/3 of his return flight to Edmonton into Toronto. After that, it's covered by the ministry. So just to clarify that for your benefit. And by all means, if you need to talk to me or you'd like to talk to me or Abigail, please do call. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Lefebvre. Appreciate it. Okay. I believe we have our multi-year budget ready to go. Everybody's ready to enjoy that special presentation? Is it online? Craig is there? Yeah.
Yeah, I just got the light on in the truck here. Good evening.
Okay. Under our unfinished business, we have our 2024 tax levy budget presentation. And so that we don't waste too much time, I'll just give the floor to you, Mr. Davidson, and you can proceed with the presentation.
Okay. Thank you, Your Worship. For council's information, just so you know a bit about my background, I'm 37 years in municipal finance. I spent 18 years as an auditor and the last 19 as municipal treasurer, administrator, clerk, basically any of the senior management roles and consultant as well. If you think about a budget, it's basically the municipality's one of the most important documents that you're going to have. It formulates not only what your future finances are going to look like, but it's the holder of bringing all the different policies together, whether it be land use policies like official plans or strategic plans, and brings them in to the budget, which then they get funded and then they can be acted upon. It boils down to the budget is a cash flow exercise. So if we don't ensure that we have the sufficient amount of expenses in, then our cash flow will suffer during the course of the year. And then once completed, it sets out the roadmap for current operations and capital programming for the year. If we think about 2023, 2023 was not a normal year. We had labor disruptions and which continued on to 2024. 2024 is not a normal year either. However, at the end of 2023, we had an unfinanced capital. Basically, the main part of that was there was equipment purchase that there was the intention to acquire long-term debt for. The long-term debt's not yet finalized, and so until it does, it's an unfinanced capital. On the operations side, though, we actually had $1.8 million go to reserves. Some of the key areas of where the 1.8 million came from, the Public Sector Accounting Board changed its policies on how interest is recorded, which increased revenue by almost 600,000 last year. We didn't acquire debt, so the debt payments that were part of the budget were not required, so that kicked out a bit of a surplus. And then, again, some major maintenance projects because it did not happen because of the work stoppage, and so funds were placed in reserves, so hopefully those can be done in future years. Turning to 2024, previous council had provided a guideline for a 10% tax increase for 2024, as well as a 2% in capital levy. If we think about for a moment, every 1% for the township of Black River Matheson equates to about $65,000 in tax levy. Some of the other notables, insurance costs are up about 10%. We're now have the collective bargaining agreement that's been negotiated, as well as non-union wages and benefits. Those have an effect in 2024, and the consumer price index is 3.9. Bear in mind that the consumer price index, while that's what a lot of the ratepayers look at is what inflation is, it's not necessarily what the municipal inflation is, because if you look at what traditionally keeps some prices down, being rents, which that's why our inflation's going higher now, but rents and food, municipalities don't spend a lot of money in that regard. So, and again, 2024 is not a typical year. We weren't expecting to have an election this year. We still have the labor disruption up until some point in May. And like what this budget is trying to do is to normalize 2024 a little bit, so that we're not hollowing out the municipal financial picture, and then we can move into 2025, which hopefully is a lot more normal year. So the capital levy I spoke to, 2% would raise 142,800 for capital reserves. Annual amortization of tax programs, so not including water and wastewater, is 700,000. So just to pay for the assets on an age base that we've purchased over the years is 700,000. This budget's proposing 142,800. Yes, there might be some ways to go. There's also, I don't think that all capital is going to be done on the backs of the taxpayer. There's going to be grant programs, etc. The asset management plan update, though, part of that is to review the financing strategy, but the 142,800 is a good placeholder for what future capital levies might be. Another significant item to look at is what the township reserves are. So at the end of 2023, and yes, the statements have not yet been audited, but the total balance of the reserves is 4.7 million. That in 2023, all the little reserves were rolled into one big reserve account. So when we look at the 4.7, that includes 2.8 reserve balance at the start of the year, plus the 1.8 million of surplus funds that would be going into reserve. This budget proposes capital projects just over $1 million to be used from reserves. And the draft budget also includes the capital allowance. And so when we get to the end of 2024, if everything was according to budget, our reserve balance would be 3.7 million. 3.7 million might sound like a lot, but if you think about it in a different way, we could totally exhaust all the reserves and reconstruct 5 kilometers of rural road. We could totally exhaust all of our reserves and not quite complete 3 kilometers of urban street because of the buried infrastructure. Or given our current rates, we could purchase 1 grader, 1 fire truck, and 3 plow trucks, and our reserves would be gone. So while it seems like there's a lot of money, 3.7 million in today's environment is not a large amount. Also consider at the end of 2023, the accumulated amortization of our assets is 21.2 million. And that would be an indication that our reserves still need some time to build. You can't build them overnight. It's a slow, methodical process, but a year off can be detrimental. So I spoke about capital operations. What we're looking at spending in the total budget is 3.5 million. So I'm assuming you have the presentation in front of you. You can see the biggest portion is transportation services of 1.3 million, and we'll see what we're estimating to be spending on in the next slides, as well as some recreation and economic development being the 3 large ticket items. Where the funding sources are coming from, we do have 35,000 coming from the tax levy. All the rest, though, grants of 1.5 million, long-term debt of 800,000, and reserves of 1.2 million. In administration, we're looking at asset management planning update. Fire, the bunker suits are treated as a capital asset, and it's annually there's bunker suits that are replaced. Transportation services, looking at some equipment that was deferred from last year, so 3 plows and sanders, and continuing the phase 2 of the rehabilitation of the above ground fuel tanks. Recreation, we're looking at boat launch repairs, capital repair in the compressor room, which is part of the Ministry of Labor order, and the retrofit to the solar array, continuing and hopefully finishing that project this year, as well as some work in Poplar Park. Destination enhancement for economic development, that's a funded program through the federal government. And land for future economic development uses, which was a purchase that was finalized near the beginning of the year. So if we're looking at tax levy budget and expenses, so the difference between an operating and the capital, operating expenses, they're continual in nature. Just get my light to go on again. And
Craig, can I interrupt you for 1 second?
Yep.
Do you have a presentation you can share with us? Because
I thought council had it, your worship. I apologize for that, but
I'm just talking about the public too.
yeah,
So
it's one that the public should have. Like, there was only slight changes made from the one that was done in July. But I was under the impression that council had it as part of the agenda package.
Well,
But-
we do have it. It's, I want the audience and the public to see the PowerPoint presentations, but I thought if you had it on your screen, you could share it.
I don't have it on my screen. Like in the past, like other people have had the screen and have shared it. If I was at home, it would be a little bit easier. I'm helping the daughter get settled into university right now, so that's why I'm in my
All
truck.
good. Okay, can continue.
Okay. So with, as I said, with operating expenses, they're typically continual in nature. And, if you think about, operating your house, like power bills and, the cost of, snow shoveling and things like that are things that you don't expect will last for many years. Those are operating costs. Purchase of a new roof, that would be a capital cost. So that's a little bit of the distinction. In Matheson as well, a capital cost must be at a $5,000 level or higher. So a chainsaw, for example, although you do hope it to last more than a year, would not be a capital cost given the price. So if we look at where $1,000 should be distributed, again, the number one is transportation services, about $300 out of the 1,000, or like 30%. Operating grants, and that's the municipal portion of projects where there's a federal or provincial grant. So the solar array, for example, or the fuel tanks, or the destination work that's being done to spruce up the intersection of Highway 101 and Highway 11. General government, 135,000, and and provincial costs being health unit, policing, and what we pay to the DSAB. Those come in at about 165,000. All the rest are basically spread throughout the budget. Some of the interesting things with the departmental costs. So again, insurance costs increased by 10%. Election costs has been included in the budget. There has been money included for an organizational review, as well as an increased budget for employee relations. Employee relations, especially after coming through the labor disruption, and that I think is important. And general government is where transfers to reserves are held. Provincial costs, overall increase of 5%. And basically there's increase across the board, whether it be policing, health unit, or the DSAB levy. Fire services, overall increase of 9.6%. Again, the insurance cost increase and the cost of $35,000 for bunker suits. With protection services, you'll see an increase. It was October of last year where the CBO bylaw position was brought in-house. And so there's some staff time and training time and a little bit of an overlap with a contract, but that's why you'll see an increase there. With transportation services, it's an overall decrease actually of 4%. That's related to, there was gravel that was purchased as a stockpile, which was then used in 2023. So that actually helped out our financial picture a little bit. And again, insurance costs increased because the major maintenance projects in the roads didn't really get off the ground last year. That could also, like we budgeted the same this year, but then depending on what projects are going to be happening, that might affect the 2025 budget. Landfills, an increase of 28%. And basically where a lot of that cost came from was the rental of portable toilets at the landfill site. Health services, basically all they do is function a cemetery, and yes, cemetery is considered to be part of our health environment. Recreation and cultural services, an overall increase of 67%. $250,000 required to the retrofit, which we spoke about, the compressor room, the boat launch repairs, as well as there was some ideas for enhanced programming to start attracting more people in. And with long-term debt, right now, we do have debt associated with the municipal office and the fleet purchases line of credit whenever that gets finalized. If we look at revenue sources, so apart from taxation, we also get grants from the provincial and federal governments, as well as user fees. And basically they all, we look at our expenses, take off our grants and our user fees, and we're left then with the tax revenue. Unconditional grants. So we have the Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund, and it's the last really unconditional grant from the province. In 2024, the grant has slowly been decreasing year after year. And this year, the grant decreased by another 46,000. If we look at what we expect in the future, is that we lose 1% each year. In conditional, it's one-time funding for specific costs. So again, the fuel program or the destination program, and basically it's conditional because we have to meet certain cost requirements before we're entitled to the money. User fees, number one user fees in the municipality are water and sewer, which are and garbage collection, which is handled by a different budget. In this budget, probably our number one would be investment income, followed slightly behind that with building permit revenue. And the presentation, when it gets distributed, there's a summary of user fees by department and what each of the user fees are made of. Okay, that was page 22 of the report that I just finished. Yeah. Okay, so there you can see the user fees and what they're made up of. So if we look at the impact of the budget to the ratepayers, operations 10% or 604,000, 605,000, and capital levy 2% or 142,800. And that does not take into account any change that there might have been in an assessment. That's just dollar to dollar. So it says combined 12% here, you might be looking at like 11.5% when we look at the effect of the assessment increase. So go down to the next one. Okay, so the tax levy budget, our total expenses in the budget, which we'll see in the next slide as well by department, is a little over 10 million. Non-tax revenue of 3.9, which says that we need to raise 6.1 million through taxes. We did have that unfinanced capital outlay at the beginning of last year, or beginning of this year, of 912. Add in the capital levy, so our total tax levy is $7.2 million for 2024. And if you go down to the operations by function, you'll see by department totals of where the expenses or the revenues would be coming from. I think the next one is just the thank you page, but also included in my little area, there was one page that or one document, it was from the computer system, and it shows a little bit more detail on the departmental breakdowns as to what would be like we did put in like the 2024 actual and the proposed budget, but it just give council an idea of what you could see as variance analysis moving forward. So what this budget does, though, is it looks at in 2024 increasing the overall taxes by 12%, 2% being capital levy, and another 2% or 10% being the previous direction given by council of last year. Any questions at this point?
Thank you, Craig. I don't know if council any questions at the moment, but I'm going to suggest that we take this and use it for some bedtime reading, but we have a lot of research to do, ton of research. Personally, I find the presentation too vague for a new council to make a decision on. And I think with some perseverance and quite a few meetings, we'll maybe get into more detailed information. That's just my personal preference, but I've always said to make a decision on this in an hour, half an hour, 2 hours, 6 hours is not enough. I think we owe it to our residents to go over this and to ensure that if you're stopped in the street and you ask why we spent $35,000 on bunker gear, you have the answer, because it's not our money, it's everybody's money. So that's just my opinion. We can take the presentation and obviously move forward with maybe some resolution at the next council meeting as to what
If
to-
I could make a couple of suggestions, your worship. Number one, I think there's other reports on tonight's agenda related to council training.
Yeah,
And like a little bit more in-depth look at the budget could be considered to be part of council training. So I wouldn't discount that as well. The one thing that, and like timing affects us all. The one report that we get to is looking at the time left in the year as it relates to taxes. Basically, council needs to have 21 days between the time taxes are levied and they're due, and they have to be due within the course of the year. But if there's any way that that I can assist in council's understanding to get to the point of approving a budget, I'd be more than happy to do that. You know, and again, this is a repeat of the presentation that was presented in July. You know, if there's areas that you feel you need to have more information on them, then we could work at getting that information as well.
okay. I have some questions now, Councillor Council.
Thank you. The tax levy multi-year budget page, moving forward, can we have access to click on each reference so we can see the detail of each department?
I will endeavor to get that to James, who can then circulate out to council. Like, I'm not the holder of, just so council's aware, I'm not the holder of these documents. They did come from Black River Matheson system. So there might need to be some discussion between James and I as to how best to do that, but we'll try to have that in council's hand before the end of the week.
Councillor Charbonneau.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to see if we can get the information on the total transferred from reserves in 2022.
2022?
Yeah, because in 2022, we had a $7 million revenue. And now we're at $11 million or $10 million, and we still want an increase. But in 2022, we had 200,000 deficit. So I'd like to see if it's because we transferred a lot of reserves, or it's.
I can talk with, I can look at the records, and if required, talk to the auditor and get a little bit better flavor, and can provide a report on the 2022 reserve activity.
Would you be open to, Craig, a couple of nights in the next coming weeks to go over this couple hours time, just a specific budget meeting?
Yeah, we can. I have a fairly flexible schedule. I have some dates that are set in stone, but I do have some time available, especially the last week in September. But I can again discuss with James what my time availability is, and be able to have a couple sessions. What I'd probably do is, so council's aware, I've been doing some administrative support as well. so I could come up in the afternoon, work on some of my reconciling, and then be there for the council meeting at night.
Okay, because obviously the minister appointee has indicated this is important and we all feel it's important, but I, for one, am not gonna raise my hand to approve anything until we specifically go over as many items as possible.
Yeah.
But I do have another question for you. You indicated that, or in some of the reports indicate that the third and fourth tax installments cannot go out until we approve this budget.
Correct.
Why is it we can't send the third tax bill out now based on 2023 and just the final tax bill for 2024 once
Because,
we've approved the budget in order to get the cash flow into the corporation?
because your worship, the municipal act limits interim tax levies to 50%. So unless we were to get special permission by the minister to exceed that, we've already levied 50% of the 2023 taxes as part of the interim levy that went out earlier, like in January, February of this year. So we're not able to comply with the municipal act and levy further taxes. So we're basically unless the ministry was to allow a special permission, we cannot levy any further until we have a final budget.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much, Craig.
Okay, and I'll be in communication with James, and we'll get some dates in the not too distant future.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
okay. Last item. Resolution for disclosure with Northeast Community Network. And the resolution is, whereas the township is a member of NECN, Northeast Community Network, and whereas NECN detains confidential information pertaining to the Claybelt Agricultural Development Project, and whereas members of the NECN board and their authorized representatives must enter into a non-disclosure agreement prior to accessing and receiving any confidential information pertaining to this project. Be it resolved that council hereby appoints the individuals listed in the appended documents as authorized representatives of the municipality for the purpose of receiving confidential information in relation to the Claybelt Agricultural Development Project. And if you read that, each of us is on there, all 7 of us. Councilor Charbonneau.
It's just it's confidential information, so that, I mean, from what the last two names have to,
Yes. As amended then.
Yeah.
Okay. So on our table, we'll remove the last two names. So that would be as amended. So I'm gonna move in a seconder. Bouchard and Allen. All in favor? Carried. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I received an email. There's an NECN meeting in Kapuskasing on the 12th. Which I of course, being new, I have no idea about it. I'm gonna attempt to zoom into it. Because it's mine. Apparently.
Yeah.
But we won't be sending
Okay,
okay, I'm gonna attempt to zoom into it. It was a deadline to accept it. I'm going to email the person that emailed me to see if I can get zoomed in. Yep. So I will try to attend that, even though I'm not sure that it's all covered.
okay,
I will see what I can do.
okay,
Yeah, just saying, I may not be able to get into that.
okay. And if, we had a practice before that if you did attend, and even all your other, boards, that to do a, once a month or once in 2 months, I don't know what it was, but we did a verbal report to council. So that you show the public that you're involved, but also brings up the speed of what you're doing.
Just give me a heads up.
Okay. Adjournment. The bylaw number 2024-33 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of Township Blackford, Masson be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed this 10th day of September 2024. Be it resolved that this regular council meeting is hereby adjourned at 8:39 PM. I have a mover and a seconder. Councilor Gadry, Councilor Allen. All in favor? Passed. Good night. Thank you for teamwork.
Kept saying Alan, it's no.